Good day and welcome to lesson 3.2. In this lesson, we will be discussing the no change in resources category when calculating the weighted average number of ordinary shares outstanding. In the previous lesson, we discussed the change in resource category, which is treated differently to the no change in resources category. When it comes to the no change in resource category and the calculation of the weighted average number of ordinary shares outstanding, if the share issue took place during the financial year, then we will not apportion it for the year like we did with the change in resources category. Another important thing that you need to remember is that if the share issue took place this year, then it would affect the current and the previous WANOS. Please note that the comparative figures won't be the same because it is a calculation based on the number of shares at the time of issue, even if it happened after year end but before the financial statements were authorized for issue. We will do an example in a few minutes that we hope will make it easier to understand. So what falls within this category? A capitalization issue. A capitalization issue increases the number of shares outstanding. A share split. A share split also increases the number of shares outstanding. And lastly, a share consolidation. A share consolidation decreases the number of shares outstanding. In the next few slides, we will be discussing each of these share issues. The first item in the no change in resources category is a capitalization issue. A capitalization issue is where ordinary shares are issued to existing shareholders for no consideration. Sometimes a share capitalization is also called a bonus issue. So how would a typical scenario for this look like? A company's ordinary share capital at the beginning of the year was 20,000 shares. The company decided to have a capitalization issue on the 30th of June of 1 share for every 2 shares held. So to calculate the amount of shares issued in the capitalization issue, it would be 20,000 shares divided by 2 multiplied by 1, giving us an amount of 10,000 shares. So after the capitalization issue, the number of ordinary shares outstanding is now 30,000 shares. But you might be wondering that it looks the same as a rights issue. The difference between a rights issue and a capitalization issue is that a rights issue is issued for a consideration, whereas a capitalization issue is issued for no consideration. The next item that falls within the no change in resources category is a share split. With a share split, a company increases the number of issued shares while the share capital amount remains the same. But what do we mean by this? Let's do a quick example to help you understand it better. Suppose a company had 1,000 ordinary shares and the value of each share was 1,000 Rand each. The share capital is therefore 1 million Rand. Then the company decides that they want to change the value of each share to 250 Rand. This means that there would now be 4,000 shares and each share would be worth 250 Rand each. The share capital in this instance is then 4,000 shares multiplied by 250 Rand, giving us a share capital of 1 million Rand. So the share capital before the share split was 1 million Rand, and after the share split, it's still 1 million Rand. So what has changed is the number of shares as well as the value of each share. So now there are more shares outstanding, but the value of each share is less. The last item that falls within the no change in resources category is a share consolidation. With a share consolidation, a company decreases the number of issued shares while the share capital amount remains the same. But what do we mean by this? Let's do a quick example to help you understand it better. 5,000 ordinary shares with a par value of 1,000 Rand per share are consolidated into 2,000 ordinary shares with a par value of 2,500 Rand per share. The company had 5,000 ordinary shares and the value of each share was 1,000 Rand each. The share capital is therefore 5,000 shares multiplied by 1,000 Rand, and that gives us a share capital amount of 5 million Rand. Then the company decides that they want to change the value of each share to 2,500 Rand. This means that there would now be 2,000 shares and each share would be worth 2,500 Rand each. The share capital in this instance is then 5 million Rand share capital. So the share capital before the share consolidation was 5 million Rand, and after the share consolidation it's still 5 million Rand. So what has changed is the number of shares as well as the value of each share. So now there are less shares outstanding, but the value of each share is more. Now let's have a look at the capitalization issue in more detail by completing an example. The question has given us earnings for 2018 and 2019 as well as the number of ordinary shares before the capitalization issue. The earnings was 140,000 Rand for 2019 and 42,000 Rand for 2018. The number of ordinary shares before the capitalization issue was 20,000 shares in 2019 and 10,000 shares in 2018. There was a capitalization issue on the 30th of November 2019 where 2 shares for every 5 shares held were given to shareholders registered on the last day to register. The reporting period date is the 31st of December 2019 and the required asks us to calculate the earnings per share. The opening balance for 2018 was 10,000 shares and the opening balance for 2019 was 20,000 shares. There was then a capitalization issue on the 30th of November 2019. A capitalization issue falls within the no change in resources category, so we do not apportion even though it was issued on the 30th of November 2019. Even though the capitalization issue took place in 2019, we will still calculate the WANOS of last year. So it will be calculated as follows. 10,000 divided by 5 multiplied by 2, and that gives us an amount of 4,000 shares. And for 2019, it will be 20,000 divided by 5 multiplied by 2, giving us an amount of 8,000 shares. So for 2019, we need to do a calculation for the actual and the WANOS, whereas for 2018, we will only calculate the WANOS of last year. So the WANOS at the end of 2018 is 14,000 shares, and the WANOS at the end of 2019 is 28,000 shares. So the earnings per share for 2019 will be 140,000 earnings divided by 28,000 shares, giving us an amount of 500 cents, and the earnings per share for 2018 will be 42,000 Rand earnings divided by 14,000 shares, giving us an amount of 300 cents. Now let's do an example of a share split. In this question, we were given earnings of 96,000 Rand. The number of ordinary shares opening balance was 9,000 shares. There was a share split on the 30th of June where 8 Rand shares were split into 3 Rand shares. The reporting period date is the 31st of December, and the required asks us to calculate the earnings per share. The opening balance was 9,000 shares. There was then a share split on the 30th of June. A share split falls within the no change in resources category, so we do not apportion it even though it was issued on the 30th of June. Now in this question we were not told how the number of shares changed, but we were told how the value of each share changed. When given a question like this, we will follow two easy steps. Step 1. Calculate the share capital Rand amount. The share capital is the amount of shares multiplied by the Rand value of each share. In this case, it will be 9,000 shares multiplied by 8 Rand per share, giving us an amount of 72,000 Rand. Step 2. Divide the share capital Rand amount by the new value of each share. So it will be 72,000 Rand divided by 3 Rand per share, giving us an amount of 24,000 shares. So before the share split, there were 9,000 shares of 8 Rand each, and now after the share split, there are 24,000 issued shares of 3 Rand each. Remember, the share capital amount remained the same at 72,000 Rand. The WANOS in this case will also be 24,000 shares. So the earnings per share is calculated as 96,000 Rand earnings divided by 24,000, and that gives us an amount of 400 cents or 4 Rand earnings per share. Lastly, let's do an example of a share consolidation. In this question, we were given earnings of 120,000 Rand. The opening balance of ordinary shares was 14,000 shares. There was a share consolidation on the 30th of September where 2 Rand shares were consolidated into 7 Rand shares. The reporting period date is the 31st of December, and the required asks us to calculate the earnings per share. The opening balance was 14,000 shares. There was then a share consolidation on the 30th of September. A share consolidation falls within the no change in resources category, so we do not apportion it even though it was issued on the 30th of September. Now in this question, we were not told how the number of shares changed, but we were told how the value of each share changed. When given a question like this, we will follow two easy steps. Calculate the share capital Rand amount. The share capital is the amount of shares multiplied by the Rand value of each share. In this case, it will be 14,000 shares multiplied by 2 Rand, and that gives us an amount of 28,000 Rand. Step 2 is to divide the share capital Rand amount by the new value of each share. So it will be 28,000 Rand divided by 7 Rand, and that will give us an amount of 4,000 shares. So before the share consolidation, there was 14,000 shares of 2 Rand each, and now after the share consolidation, there are 4,000 issued shares of 7 Rand each. Remember, the share capital remained the same at 28,000 Rand. The WANOS in this case will also be 4,000 shares. So the earnings per share is calculated as 120,000 Rand earnings divided by 4,000, and that will give us an amount of 30 Rand or 3,000 cents. And that is the end of this lesson. Please carry on with the next lesson once you are done with this lesson.